Next Wednesday is Ash Wednesday, the beginning of Lent. Today, preparing for Lent, we celebrate Project Compassion Sunday. Caritas and our bishops have prepared a video which we'll see just after communion. And our bishops have issued a statement entitled "The Cost of Our Living," in which they urge us to trust in the Spirit so that we can help to lift the cloud of gloom which overwhelms so many of us today and replace it with hope for a stronger, compassionate, more resilient and fairer country. After a week when there's been division and rancour over the visit of President Herzog, we hope and pray that during Lent we can come to a more shared understanding of justice and truth. And speaking of the alleged terrorist attack at the Aboriginal rally in Perth on the 26th of January, Prime Minister Albanese has reminded us that the forces of racism remain a real and present danger in our society. So, how are we to relieve the gloom and replace it with hope for a stronger, compassionate, more resilient and fairer country? In today's Gospel, we continue Matthew's account of the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus is very prescriptive. "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law and the prophets, no, rather to fulfill them." And he proceeds to set down standards and prescriptions which we must admit are all but impossible to achieve. It's all very well to have a decree, "Thou shalt not murder." I dare say there are none of us in this church who have murdered. But when it comes to having a difference with a brother or sister, being angry with a brother or sister, hands up those who have never been so. I suggest it'd be only those who are solely only children, having no brother and no sister. So there's no way that we can pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps. We're dependent on the Lord for his mercy, his forgiveness, and our redemption. In today's first reading from Sirach, we hear, "Before you are life and death, good and evil. Which you choose shall be given to you. No one does the Lord command to act unjustly, to none does he give license to sin." The choice between life and death, good and evil, is not always simple and straightforward, nor is it just an individual choice. It's a choice which presents itself to our society, and it's a choice which confronts us not only in our personal relationships, but in our social responsibilities. We're never commanded to act unjustly, nor are we given license to sin. These words should resonate for us individually and collectively, especially when we're wondering what is just, what is sinful, what is right and proper, and what is not. On Friday, we marked the 18th anniversary of the national apology to the stolen generations. I was privileged to attend the breakfast in the Great Hall in Parliament House in Canberra. There were more than 800 people in attendance, and many of them were members of the stolen generations. It was wonderful to hear the Aboriginal opera singer Deborah Cheetham sing a haunting acknowledgement of country, but only after she'd explained how she was a descendant of members of the stolen generations, and how heartening it was to realise that one who was such a descendant could be one of the leading opera singers of our country. Prime Minister Albanese recalled his presence in the Parliament 18 years ago when Kevin Rudd delivered the apology. I thought he became a little too political when he pointed out that, of course, John Howard had opposed it for a long time, but then he went on to acknowledge that Brendan Nelson, as leader of the Liberal Party, took a bipartisan approach and therefore it was passed. We should note, of course, that people like John Howard still think that the idea of one generation apologising for the acts of another is an empty gesture. In hindsight, most of us can see that the national apology was a simple and clear choice for life and for good. Some things which appear complex and divisive, and are, can be reconciled over time. When it came to wondering how we might lift the gloom and replace with hope for a stronger, compassionate, more resilient and fairer country, I of course took heart at the singing of Deborah Cheetham. But the day before, our Parliament had received the Closing the Gap report that pointed out, to put it bluntly, that if you're an Aboriginal child in Australia today, you're 11 times more likely than any other child to be in out-of-home care. And we had a major inquiry into this 30 years ago called Bringing Them Home. And the number of Aboriginal children in out-of-home care now is more than double what it was at the time of the Bringing Them Home report. Some challenges just seem completely intractable. And this brings me back to the observation at the outset that with what Jesus prescribes in today's gospel, there are some things we cannot do on our own. We're ultimately dependent on the Lord for his mercy, forgiveness, and for our redemption. So I came away from the National Apology Breakfast wondering how much and how soon, if at all, things might change for the better for Aboriginal children in out-of-home care. No matter how much we might open our ears and our hearts. How likely is it that the overwhelming cloud of gloom can be lifted? This Lent, let's continue to pray for healing in our land. Let's continue to hope for a stronger, compassionate, more resilient and fairer country. And let's do something about it. And let's do it in the words of today's psalm. Blessed are they who follow the law of the Lord. Instruct me, O Lord, in the ways of your statutes, that I may exactly observe them. Give me discernment, that I may observe your law and keep it with all my heart.